You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of having all the right ingredients, uninhibited, and exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, in Disney.
Well, here it is, another Saturday night. We're glad you're with us. You're coming into JW World News. That's the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about, but we talk about it here live every Saturday night, and we've got a bunch of stories to share with you tonight. Well, hello, everyone. My name's Rick Farron. I'm coming to you from the apostate capital of the world, right up here in Boston, Massachusetts. And we do have a lot of apostates up here, and like I always tell you guys, if you don't have many apostates where you are now, wherever you might be, in the South, the Southwest, maybe in another country, wherever you are, you're going to be seeing a lot of Jehovah's Witness apostates very soon. Believe me, more and more people, as you guys know, I know I'm preaching to the choir at times, but you guys know there's so many people right now leaving the Watchtower. Well, I want to thank you for coming in. This is my favorite night of the week. Saturday night. You know, you think everybody would be out shopping and going out to dinner or to the movies. But, you know, a lot of people listening in here to the Six Screens, we have never missed a Saturday night in 16 years. In 16 years, we have a 100% batting average here. We are here because you are here. Friends, you have been touched by the tentacles of an evil organization. You have suffered many, many things because of the doctrines, the teachings, the policies of the Watchtower organization. And what we do here every Saturday night is we expose them for who they are, a very dangerous and a destructive cult. Yeah, I mean, I've been out now for 15 years. But we have people call the program that about for 40 years. And there's still some residual effect from this dangerous organization still in people. So they'll be calling in tonight. And I encourage people to call in, please. You know, that's what really makes this program. People love it when people call in and speak up from all over the world. We just had Roland in here from the United Kingdom. And when people speak up from all over the world, it really makes it, it gives it an international flavor. It's not only witnesses in America that have been hurt by the Watchtower. It's witnesses all around the world that have been hurt by the Watchtower. So you'll be hearing people calling in tonight. And why don't you muster up the courage, as we always say, and try to come in and make a comment tonight. And if you want to, if you're listening on YouTube, go to the description box, and that'll give you the number to dial in on. And for the most part, it's a toll-free number. So dial in wherever you would be and speak up and let us know what your concerns are concerning the Watchtower. Well, let's get into it. Let's see what we got for news this week. And I have to say, there's been a lot going on this week, but I say that every week, right? Because there is. There's so much taking place right now in the Watchtower. We are looking at an organization in free fall. And I have to say, the Watchtower really is dead. It just hasn't fallen over yet. And as I always say, too, the monkey died. The circus is over. I don't know where these guys are going to go from here. This is just complete baloney. And what's taken place this week is really rocking the Jehovah's Witness boat. We got a new revised edition of the Elder's Manual. It's called Shepherd the Flock Book, and it's only given to elders. They're the only ones that have privy to read it and get it, but we have it here, and we're reading it, and we're seeing new light that really is somewhat disturbing, and I believe you guys will agree with me here tonight. And there's two things I wanted to talk about. There's a lot of different changes and updates, but there's only two that I'm going to cover here tonight that I thought really are the most monumental, the ones I think really deserve discussion, because for many years the Watchtower has taught certain things, but now we see them making adjustments, and the adjustments are being made for their own good, not for the good of the rank and file person who is in the Watchtower. All this new light it's making them be in a better position. Now, let's just talk about this new light concerning marriage. The Elders Manual, it's actually more on divorce than marriage, I guess. But you guys all always know, we talk about it here a million times on the 6 screens. There are so many marriages that are made in Brooklyn. Well, maybe you're married to someone, and if you love them, that's a good thing. I would encourage that. But there's so many Jehovah's Witnesses, when I was in, I saw that were married and they were very unhappy. But the reason why they were unhappy is because their marriage was made in Brooklyn. It was a Brooklyn marriage, really. The Watchtower put people together on the basis of, well, he's a ministerial servant and he's very strong-minded for Jehovah. Statements like that, and people would get married, not really falling in love with one another, but they would get married on the basis of, well, he's spiritually mature and she's pioneering and she loves Jehovah. Let's tie the knot. So many marriages have taken place. They're marriages, I say, that have been made in Brooklyn. So here's what we got, and you guys might be able to remember this. Maybe not. Maybe if you've never been in a bad situation concerning a divorce in the Watchtower, you never had to think much about it. But a person who doesn't love his wife anymore, or vice versa, a wife that doesn't love her Jehovah's Witness husband anymore, up until now, there's been a real problem. But the Flock book made some changes. I'll tell you what the changes are. Now, let's just go with this. Let's just say that you were a Jehovah's Witness man and you no longer loved your wife. You said, that's it. I don't love Cindy anymore. So I'm going to leave Cindy. I want a divorce. But according to the Watchtower, the only way that you could get a divorce is, according to the Bible, the scriptures as well, they use it, is adultery, right? So if you wanted to be remarried, adultery would have to take place. Well, this has always been a conundrum, always been a issue for many people in the Watchtower concerning divorce. So you want to get a divorce, you don't love your wife, or maybe the wife doesn't love the husband. Maybe the husband's beating the living daylights out of her, giving her bruises and black eyes, and the woman says, I want a divorce. She can't get a divorce on the basis of on the basis of her being beat up. She could get a divorce if the husband committed adultery or if she committed adultery. And in many cases, Watchtower mates who were so unhappy with the marriage, they actually went out and committed adultery so they could get remarried or out of the marriage. Many did that in the past, but here's what I see has changed in the Flock book. Now, I'm going to say this, and I think you guys will come to grips with what I'm going to say, because I put many, many witnesses, maybe even you were in this situation and you had a wife that you didn't love, or vice versa, and you wanted to leave your wife, but you knew there's going to be problems. You could say to the Watchtower, you could even lie to the Watchtower and say, well, I committed adultery, and that would be grounds for divorce. But remember now, if you got remarried, the other partner, the mate, if they were, forgiving you, you could still have a hard time getting a legal divorce in the Watchtower. You could get it through the laws of the land, but the Watchtower might not consider you divorced. But let's just say that a person did go out and they got remarried, and they now would be in an adulterous relationship. Let's say they didn't even commit adultery, but they just wanted to divorce their wife, so they went out and got remarried. What would happen is that person, the husband, let's just stay with the male here, the husband that remarried, he would, at that point when he married the new wife, he would be an adulterer. he would be an adulterer. But what would happen to the wife under this situation? The wife could, well, as long as the innocent mate was alive, she may not be able to get married again. So it really created a conundrum. So they made a big change. They made a change. So what they did is, if you're not considered living in an adulterous marriage, instead you committed adultery, thus you deal with the initial judicial. So let's just go with this. Let me try to break it down so you can understand it, because it's somewhat confusing, a lot of legal jargon here. So the only real changes that I can see now, if you're not considered living in an adulterous marriage, instead you committed adultery, thus you deal with the initial judicial hearing, but not basically serving a life sentence. So if your husband left you and went out and started living with another woman, and he even would say to you, well, honey, I'm not really committing adultery, you couldn't get a divorce yourself. You couldn't remarry. You at that point would now be basically under the whims of the Watchtower. So you could not remarry until you really knew for sure this husband committed adultery. It's really a mixed up situation. So the change is now, if a person has left their wife and got remarried, then they can be reproved. They will be reproved if they did that. And for 3 years, they could not serve as a servant in the Watchtower. This is what I'm trying to break this all down to be, is the Watchtower in the past has disfellowship people who got remarried without technically committing adultery. And consequently, they could never serve as a person, as a servant, I should say, for forever. But now, after 3 years, they can be reproved. But after 3 years, they can now come in as a servant again. So the bottom line, the difference that I feel here is solely that the man who would never have had a chance of being appointed in the congregation until either the ex-wife died or she remarried. That's no longer the case. The new marriage just now has to live down the drama of being reproved. So if you're going to go out and remarry and it's not considered an adulterous situation, you would be put on reproof. It wouldn't even be disfellowship for the most part. And after 3 years, if they find you're working toward their arrangements and doing the things they like, well, you could be appointed to a servant. So that's different. That wasn't always the case. The old light is the ex would have to be remarried or dead before you could even be considered for a servant, because they would still consider you married to that mate. Isn't that something? Well, I want to bring that up. It's a lot of legalistic terms in there, very, very fuzzy sometimes how the Watchtower does it. Had to cut through a lot of fat. But basically, I see the change here simply. I mean, there's nothing more to really remember here, but one thing. The one thing you remember is, if you went out and you remarried without getting a scriptural divorce, now the person before you left could never remarry. They could never even think about getting married again, because they would be considered an adulterer. But the Watchtower now has cut slack on this area. And now if a person got married and they could be reproved if there wasn't sexual immorality, they could be reproved. And the other mate, even though adultery may not have taken place, if the person says, hey, there's no adultery here, the other mate could still now get remarried. Divorce could be final. So that's it. But I see what they're doing here. They're just doing it to be able to have more servants, because so many servants are leaving. So I don't know, anyone out there ever been in a marriage where you had to go through all these hoops and you had to sit down with a judicial committee hearing and listen to all this baloney and try to make sense of it, your head would be spinning when you left. Any thoughts at all? Anyone been in that situation? Have we had anybody out there that ever divorced their husband as a Jehovah's Witness or divorced their wife? What do you think? Anybody out there? Well, I guess not. Well, that's the one thing I wanted to bring up. The only change basically is I'm going to say that if you break it all down, that they need servants. They don't want to put a man out there in a difficult situation, even though he claims he may not have committed adultery. Many have to say they do commit adultery, even though they didn't, just so they could get a scriptural divorce. But some men just want a divorce and they don't commit adultery, but that puts the other partner in a precarious position. They can't remarry. So now what they're saying is you could be reproved if you got remarried, and you can now come back in the organization and be a servant within 3 years. Isn't that something? It just amazes me.
Well,
Yes, go ahead, Thomas.
yeah, I was just going to say, this is just my little spiel on it. I think what the Watchtower is doing is they know a lot of people are leaving this organization. And I think this is one way to try to get people to stay and keep people kind of more like pinned in and go along with all their other garbage. But this is something that'll entice the people to try to stick with it. Because some of them went out on marriage. They want to marry so-and-so or whatever. And they feel that this might be a little way of trying to encourage them to stick with the organization. That's what I really believe.
Well, Thomas, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. The Watchtower knew they really messed a lot of families up. And not only that, messed themselves up too, because a lot of good people went walking when they were disfellowship. So they're really taking a different stand on this now. They're really looking closely at, you're probably not even going to be disfellowshipped if you leave your wife on unscriptural grounds. That would be adultery. If you leave and just say, I want to get a divorce, and you pursue a divorce, you might be reprimanded for it. You wouldn't be, it looks like at this point, not disfellowshipped, but you'd be reprimanded. In 3 years, you could serve as a servant again. Yeah.
Hey, Rick, we had a guy in our congregation. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I specifically remember I won't say his name, but I know this guy. He had his first wife. He gets disfellowship or disassociate, whatever. He gets divorced. This point blank, this guy, I can name 3 or 4 wives this guy has had and has come back. I am not lying. I want to say first, he was not an elder, and I really don't think he was a servant, but just point blank. I remember him. I just remember him, and I know when I was growing up, I can name 3 or 4 wives. I remember this brother's name. I remember them very well. He would in the congregation, one wife, get this fellowship, whatever, leave for a while, come back, he has another wife. Repeat, what is the shampoo, rinse, repeat, whatever, the same thing, 3 or 4 times. Definitely. I remember, but I want to say first and foremost, he was not an elder. No, he was not, and he was not a servant. But this guy in the congregation, 3 or 4 wives, because I can remember his name, I can remember this situation, and all the nosy sisters and everybody talking about it in our congregation. I remember him with 3 or 4 wives coming back and coming back and coming back because he was a bus driver here in New York, like a lot of the brothers were, and he just happened to be on a certain bus line in this, community where the congregation was. So believe me, like I said, he was not an elder, he was not a servant, but this guy had 3 or 4 wives and always came back.
Yeah. Well, Shirley, you hear all these oddball stories in the organization. It's very crazy. Very, very crazy.
I know a guy like that too, and he's the guy that had the boat and all the good parties, and he had one wife after another, and they kept taking him back. He was not a good guy. He was not an elder, but he looked like Richard Burton, and he had the party boat.
But this guy didn't look like Richard Burton anything. Yeah, I can name 3. I remember when I was growing up, 3 or 4 wives, and kept coming back. And they say, "Oh well, Jehovah will take care." You know what they used to say, Jehovah in His own time will take care of it. You know, whatever. But this guy, 3 or 4 wives. He leaves, gets fellowship, come back, then another wife, then another wife, then another wife.
Crazy stuff that goes on in the organization. Thank you, Shirley, for calling in and letting us know your feelings on it. But what I want to do, because there was a lot in that book to unpack in this revision, so I don't want to confuse anybody. So let me just try to break it down to the simplest thing. I'm going to tell you what I feel is happening here. The innocent party before, well, let's say the husband went out and there was no adultery, but he didn't want to be with his wife. So there was no adultery, so the wife could not remarry. So the husband went off and left her, but the wife was left holding the bag. So she couldn't get remarried. And so that is actually what's happening now. Now, if a husband leaves a wife, according to the Flock book, if a husband leaves the wife now, then for any reason, well, I don't love you, honey. I didn't commit adultery, but I just can't be with you anymore. Now the wife isn't on the hook anymore. She'll be able to be remarried. So that's the difference. Okay. Just try to break it all down. There's so much there. Well, you're on JW World News. The Watchtower doesn't want you talking about, my friends. We talk about it here every Saturday night. It's unbelievable, some of the stuff that's happening. Yeah, let's do this. Another story here I want to bring up tonight, which really is the biggest buzz. This is what everyone's talking about on Reddit. This is what everyone's talking about in the Jehovah's Witness X world. I can't believe it. But anyways, the Watchtower, again, in the Flock book. The Flock book is now cutting slack to Jehovah's Witnesses viewing child pornography. What? I couldn't believe it. This is causing a lot of problems right now. A lot of ex-witnesses is saying, I am going to go to my relatives. I'm going to show them this right out of the Flock book. And boy, I'll tell you what, I have no idea what the Watchtower is even thinking about. I can't believe this update in the Shepherd of the Flock book. They have updated their policies for witnesses who are viewing child pornography. They are now saying, from a congregation standpoint, it is not viewed as child sex abuse and is something that should not be automatically handled by a judicial committee. Do you want me to read that to you again? I will, because I want this to sink in.
If you could please read that, because that is not legal, at least in the United States. It would be an illegal federal offense.
Pixie, you're absolutely right. I'm going to read it to you. I'm reading it to you right from the Flock book. From a congregation standpoint, it is not viewed as child sex abuse and is something that should not be automatically handled by a judicial committee. That is viewing child porn. In the state that I live in, Massachusetts, it's against the law. Nationally, it's against the law. So think about it. So they're saying here, dependency, that's the Watchtower saying this, dependency upon the frequency and the severity of viewing it, it could be handled by a judicial committee. It could be handled, but it's not. They're not recommending it. It makes no mention of saying this is a crime in almost all jurisdictions. It's a federal crime. Maybe some states have a little different view on it, but most states even look at it as a crime. And they're not instructing the elders to call the police when they find out a brother or maybe even a sister is viewing child pornography. What a sad state of affairs. It really, really is. This does not wake up sincere elders. It doesn't. some of these loyal, sincere elders, they're so loyal to the Watchtower, this isn't even waking them up when they read something like this. Oh, well, listen now, if we got Brother Jones, he loves watching kiddie porn, but, cut him some slack. We don't have to have a judicial committee hearing. This is disgusting. This is revolting. This is a federal crime. I looked it up today. U.S. Department of Justice on child pornography. Child pornography is a form of child sexual exploitation. Federal law defines child pornography as any visual depiction of sexually explicit conduct involving a minor, that'd be a person less than 18 years old. Images of child pornography are also referred to as child sexual abuse images. Federal law prohibits the production, distribution, importation, reception, or possession of any image of child pornography. A violation of federal child pornography law is a serious crime, and convicted often faces fines and severe statutory penalties. Now, can you imagine that? That's right from the U.S. Department of Justice website. I'm reading this. And the Watchtower is saying, no judicial committee hearing. No, that's not good. We won't do that. This is a crime, what's going on in the Watchtower. And then I looked up in Awake magazine. In Awake magazine, they had a different opinion a few years back. As a matter of fact, an article I read on child pornography in the Awake magazine, it said that, I believe it was back in 1986, somewhere around there, 82 maybe, but it was saying that in the article in the Awake, it said that child pornography is photogenic evidence of child sex abuse. Photographic evidence. So you can see it. And by even viewing it, you're participating in sexual abuse, according to the Awake magazine. So why is viewing it treated so casually in the latest Shepherd of the Flock manual? Strongly counseled that judicial action does not have to take place. What are they trying to cover up? Once again, there's no mention of reporting this crime to police. At this point, how can an elder in possession of this manual, the Shepherd the Flock Book 2021 revision, how can an elder in possession of this book deny the fact that this organization harbors and protects criminals? That is something else. I cannot believe the punishment for watching apostate videos is more severe than the punishment for watching child sex abuse material in the Watchtower. What do you have to say? You're on with us. Go ahead.
Rick, it's Steve.
Steve, how are you?
Good, thanks, Rick. No, we all know that it's a pedophile organization, and probably the elders are the ones that are, well, they already promote it or they protect pedophiles, so they're probably the ones engaging in it. Not all of them, obviously, but it's an organization that we already know is pro-pedophilia, and so it's just the next step. It's gradualism, and I'm sure as the years go on, there will be other things, but all of their talk about pornea and everything, and then they take the step and do this. I mean, years ago, if you met a sister for lunch without in a public place without a chaperone, you were counseled strongly, and now this you can do. No, this is a pedophile organization, and this is what they do because they support pedophilia and they support the system, which also supports pedophilia and promotes it.
Oh, Steve, I agree with you 100%. There's elders engaged in this, and now I'm beginning to believe, coming pretty much to grips with the fact that even some higher ups, perhaps even governing body members, are involved in this.
I totally agree, because if they weren't, they wouldn't be in charge, and they wouldn't be the face of the organization. So they'll just say they're leaving it in Jehovah's hands, and with that phrase, leaving it in Jehovah's hands means anything goes.
Well, it's really, in fact, this is really, we're hearing it here tonight, and it's been floating around the internet here for a few days since the new manual came out. But a lot of buzz about this story. And what I'm reading on some of these forums is that people are really trying to get their hands on the record here. They're trying to get their hands on the book so they can show their witness relatives this. Now, whether this will be the thing that can really get a witness thinking, I think it can. I mean, it's not the magic bullet, but I'm really thinking this could really, how bad is child sex abuse? It's the worst thing. That, murder and rape.
Rick?
Yes, that's the worst. Yes.
Hey, Rick, it's Dan.
Yes.
Hey, what they're going to have left is a porn shop. I'm serious. If you were a regular husband with children, with babies, and you were appointed elder and you look down at that, I would think anybody normal except a pedophile that says, hey, man, we're going to get off of this shit. Look what this society did for us. They put this wonderful article in here. Look at this. It's not a crime. But sincere people, sincere truth seekers, family men would say, what the hell is this organization doing? Really, Rick, they're going to be like showing it to each other. Can you believe the Watchtower said that these men can look at child babies, my kids? Rick, anybody with a normal mind. And like I said, I think that the good people are going to be leaving. I think they're already leaving. I think the asking for money, this new thing about the child pornography. People are going to start getting the hell out of there. I'm telling you, they're going to start. The good people are going to go, and the crud are going to stay.
Oh, I couldn't say it any different. Yeah, the ones that stay are going to be the bad bones of the Watchtower.
Isn't that something?
Hey, Rick.
Another thing too. Go ahead.
This is Scott from Florida.
Yes, Scott.
Yeah, I just remember a number of years ago, they came down very hard on brothers watching any kind of pornography because they basically said that if you're viewing pornography like that, you have in effect committed fornication in your heart, I believe is the way they worded it. So, it's hard to imagine that they could lower the standards anymore and actually allow children. And I find it interesting because there's liberals, not picking on liberals, but it happens to be the group in the political world that are trying to use a new term for pedophiles. I don't know if you've seen it. They refer to them as MAPs, and that's a minor attracted person. So they're basically trying to lessen the idea that pedophilia is wrong, and it's just a personal issue that a person has. It's just the way they are, that they're attracted to minors. And it almost seems like this kind of concept is almost in line with what the world's trying to push. They're trying to lessen the severity of it and make it more acceptable and mainstream. So I definitely agree with you that I find this sort of thing really distressful. And there's so many in congregations that have been molested as children. I wonder how the victims of this are going to feel to hear and see this. My wife was a teen, her sister was a teenager and molested by a brother. I was a ministerial servant in my last congregation, and we had a brother that had been a pedophile with apparently a granddaughter or something, and he was even on the Florida registry. And they disfellowshipped him, but they eventually reinstated him, and he started going out in service. And this sister came up to me and begged me not to put her in his car group, and she was bawling in tears. Now, I don't know if she was ever molested, but she was shaking. Her reaction was so bad to being around somebody like that. And now just to think that they're lessening it and making it more acceptable is definitely distressing. That's just my thoughts.
Well, that's your good thoughts. I mean, that's I wish more witnesses would think that way. It's very distressing, Scott. Thank you very much for checking in with us. I believe we've got Montreal, Canada. Go ahead. We got Montreal. You want to say something? Well, I've got.
Hi, it's Annie from.
Oh, Annie, how are
It's
you?
Annie from Montreal.
Hello, Annie.
I'm okay.
Good.
I'm okay, thanks. I have a thought on this. Well, first of all, I find it disgusting, and I'm wondering, about the rank and file, that they would probably not know much about this as usual because it's a elder's logbook. So I'm just wondering, that they're going to be kept in the dark again as usual. Only the elders and possibly their wives, I don't know. But I was really wondering if Zalkin Law Firm knows about this. I really hope so, because I think they've already handled quite a few of those cases, I believe. And so I would really like to see Zalkin Law Firm, get involved, because, like you said earlier, it's against the law and it's disgusting. And I mean, how low can they go? Watchtower is becoming like, I don't know what, but yeah, and it actually turns my stomach because I was also a victim a long time ago when I was a kid. And so, yeah, I really hope that somebody does something to report them, actually. That's my thought anyway.
Well, sorry for your experience, Annie, and I can see you could take this very, very much to heart. And what the Watchtower is doing here is a crime, but it's a shame. It's a shame that, like you said, you just brought a thought up. The witnesses, they have no privy to reading this in the flock book. They can't read it. It would bother their conscience if they did, but the elders are reading it. And what type of a man would be able to see this in the flock book and say, okay, I guess there's no problem with it. It's a crime. It's a crime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And a very good friend of mine always says, the devil hides in secret. And so the Watchtower organization, the more I see of it or hear about it, it's so much secrecy. Why there's secrecy? Because they're not up to anything good, in my opinion. So yeah, it actually makes me want to cry. I find it disgusting, and somebody has to do something. That's all I want to say.
Annie, in fact, Annie, I have to say, the certain feelings we all get as humans. Our stomach turns, tears can come to our eyes. When you see something so unjust, so terrible, so horrible as Watchtower turning away from really even scolding people for watching child pornography, that is like participation in itself. And even going back to the flock book of 2020, I'm going to read what it said a year ago. And of course, we made the changes. They made the changes, and now they changed it. But according to the flock book 2020 edition, it says what child abuse is. It says child abuse includes the sexual or physical abuse of a minor. Now, this is last year's flock book. It would also include the extreme neglect of a minor by her parent. Child sex abuse is a perversion and generally includes sexual intercourse with a minor, oral sex, anal sex. I hope there's no children listening. Anal sex with a minor, fondling the genitals, breast, or buttocks of a minor. Voyeurism of a minor. Indecent. What's voyeurism? Spying on a little kid, trying to see them in the nude, perhaps taking a bath. Indecent exposure to a minor. Soliciting a minor for sexual conduct. This is all according to the Watchtower flock book a year ago, what sexual misconduct would be in child abuse. Now, it said, depending on the circumstances of the case, it may involve child pornography or sexting with a minor. So, last year they did consider child abuse. It could be considered child sexual abuse, but not now they got the 2020 version. and they're saying that, let's not even discuss it. Let's not even bring it into a judicial matter. I mean, I have feelings on why they're doing this. They don't want to have anything on record. They don't want to have anything on record. They don't want to have a brother on record that he viewed child pornography. I don't want to on anywhere is what basically they're doing. So it's not considered child pornography, according to the new Flock book, is not considered to be child sex abuse from a congregation standpoint. However, it does say it's still
very twisted.
It's twisted. It says, but it is a serious violation of Jehovah's standards. You better believe it. God hates. I'll tell you what God does to people who abuse children. He puts a millstone around their neck and throws them in the ocean. That's what God thinks of it. But the Watchtower taking this nonchalant, this patsy approach. So a person involved in viewing child pornography, I'm reading this right from the Flock book, should be strongly counseled, depending on the frequency and the extent of his viewing, and he could be subject to judicial action, but he won't be. He won't be. Thank you, Annie.
Well, then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, somebody should.
Your Bible knowledge is good there, Brother Farron. It says millstone around the neck and off the bridge. That's what it says.
Yeah, there you go.
It should be reported to the authorities. It's too much now. It's going too far.
Well, I'm going to send this article that I have here, and I do have the version of the book here, but I'm going to send this to Zalkin, and maybe others will do it too. But I'm going to send it to him and say, take a look at this, Irwin. Take a look at what they're doing now. Yeah. Thank you, Annie, for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
All right. Well,
Joey.
Yeah, Chewy, go ahead.
On a lighter note, can we smoke a cigarette now, Rick?
Well, actually, I'll tell you what, they are making provisions not for smoking cigarettes, but for smoking marijuana.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, that was also in the new version of the Flock book. I didn't have that on the news tonight, but I was reading it earlier that, if a doctor has put you on a prescription, or at least suggesting for you to take marijuana, that'll be okay. So they didn't say anything about not smoking it. So most people take it and they smoke it. So evidently you can do that now.
Yeah, hey Rick, this is Chewy.
Yeah, sure.
They had that in a couple previous Shepherd of the Flock book on that marijuana deal, but they kind of expanded it on this time because the question is what about a person growing marijuana? And it said that if it's totally cool, just what you said, and you can grow it if someone is in your family that has a license, you can grow it. So anyway.
Right. No, yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yes, indeed. That I did see that, Chewy. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Before it was just that it wasn't. You didn't say nothing about growing it, but now, a lot of states got it legalized, so they had to confront the question. I wonder what scripture they used to come up with that. Anyway, I love it when they make an asinine, delusional decision. Their legal department did not read that before they sent it out. What a bunch of buffoons! No wonder they got the other outside legal firms taking care of their child pedophilia cases. I mean, who in their right mind would send that out on the internet?
Chewy, I have no idea why they're doing this. This is crazy. This is crazy stuff going on. Go ahead, you're on with us.
Hey, Rick, this is Justin, the PMO. Hey, you made a point a few moments ago that's spot on. A buddy of mine is an elder up in Connecticut, and he tells me all the time that, one thing that I guess a lot of us on the call, you may have forgotten, but a lot of witnesses, they do a lot of confessing over minor stuff. So he would tell me that there would be brothers, there would be sisters that would come to him and say, hey, I'm watching pornography, I'm watching this type of fetish porn. And one of the reasons that I'm sure that this new point came out about the child porn is that people would come to different elders and say, I'm watching child porn. And some elders feel they would have to call the legal department or the service department and report it. So they want to stop that. And the point you made about not having a record of it, that's why they're doing it. They're lumping all of the pornography into one lump sum. And it's to stop people from, these elders from having to call into the legal department and having some type of record. And I just wanted to mention that point as well, that you were pretty spot on with that. Like I said, I'm a PMO, and I still talk to a lot of my friends from Bethel and in the organization. I mean, I attend all the meetings now. I have to for family reasons, but that's one of the points that he made to me before.
Well, thank you, Justin. Always good to hear from you. Thank you. Now, you come back and see us soon. We always love hearing from you. Thank you. Yeah, this is all crazy stuff, right? So what I'm seeing here, it appears as though the Watchtower, man, this is creepy stuff. This is really creepy. But what I'm seeing here, it's like the Watchtower is openly flaunting their pedophilia at this point. Really. They should be heading in the opposite direction. Well, what type of a name are they trying to get among people? If people are seeing this. Now, maybe the witnesses aren't seeing it because Annie said they don't have the flock book. I understand that. But there's a lot of people listening to this, and it'll hit the news. You watch. This will be brought up in the newspaper, or it'll be brought up by maybe Zolkin himself or whoever. But what are they thinking? They're actually flaunting their pedophilia at this point. You're on with us. Go ahead.
Hey, Rick,
yes.
Like Justin had just said about, he heard about people watching other porn and stuff. I remember years ago, back in the 80s and 90s, a sister that I was friendly with, her and her husband. Now, the saying goes, the way she put it to me was, hey, a sister told me that she heard on a porn, somebody was watching, one of the brothers and sisters was watching a porn film, and they saw the publications in the back. Now, you know that the witnesses of publications, they're like yellow, red, green, they always stand out. And so she said to me, oh, somebody told me that a brother and sister was watching some porn, and they saw the publications in the background. Now, being that story, I don't know if she saw it or it was a true story. Somebody, one brother told another and another, because the books, they always stand out. There's an orange, there's a red book, there's a yellow, green, they always stand out. But I remember her telling me that somebody told me that they were watching the porn and they saw the publications in the back.
I believe that, Shirley. I really do. I'm not going to discount that for 1 second. And I'm even going to bring this up. Now, we all know Johnny the Bethelite. Now, he was an insider, the first insider in the Watchtower that ever came out and made himself public. And he was on our program for 10 years. He had his own radio program, Jehovah's Underground. I'm going to be playing a clip from what his last call was back in January of 2019, 2 years ago. Johnny came on and he talked about the governing body being involved in pornography, kiddie porn. And we never heard from him since. Never. He used to contact my wife and I every week, 2-3 times a week, off the radio. Then he had his radio program. We haven't heard from this man since he spoke up about the Watchtower officials being involved in child porn. Go ahead, you're on with us, and we're going to play the clip from Johnny. Go ahead, Pixie. All right. So anyways.
I'm waiting to hear it. Go for it.
Oh, yeah, I want you to hear this. I just want to let people know. Johnny, it's about a 10-minute clip. I want you to hear it. You got to hear what Johnny said. Nobody believed him 2 years ago. Nobody ever believed Johnny. They always thought he was made up. We just had him to, build our website up or to get promotions and PR and all of that. But Johnny was a real Bethelite, and he worked in the computer department, the IT department, and he worked on the governing body's computers. He worked on the Watchtower computers. He could intercept email. He got emails coming to the governing body. I want you to listen to what Johnny had to say 2 years ago in January. It was his last program. We knew him for many years, and that was it. When he talked about child pornography, with the higher ups of the Watchtower. He disappeared. Now, I'm going to say they killed him. I don't know, but it's kind of coincidental. And now all of a sudden, this is all coming out, and now people are believing this. And just what Shirley said, I have no feelings that when that woman said she saw in a pornographic clip, Watchtower Publications, I'll guarantee you it was there. These guys are deeper involved in perversion, demonic activity than you would ever think. These guys are total perverts. Let's listen to Johnny. Let me clue this up. Let me just get everything in place here, and we'll listen to what was said here. And the name of the program was Jehovah's Underground. Let me just get it to where it should be, which is around, let me see, 4:30 in. So let me go 4:30 in. Let's listen to Johnny. I'm gonna go a little earlier than this so you can get the gist of it. So let's listen in.
Put in a nice chunk of cash that will help with a lot of the settlements that are coming out.
Now, Johnny, just for the record, I mean, you're aware of things. You kind of live a double life. You're on the 6 screens. You're an active Bethelite. I mean, I'm sure there's others too living double lives at Watchtower, but are many of the Bethelites waking up and smelling the coffee? Is there a lot of discontent there? What do you think?
There's a lot of questions that have no answers to them. As you know, there's things that are happening personally for me that are going on, but it's not just me. The people that you can't look away. There are elders that are young like I am or younger than me that have people who are asking questions that they're not allowed to answer. There's just so much about it. So much rape, molestation, pedophilia. In one case, went digging deeper into the case in the Netherlands, in a place called Emmet. It seems that some of the elders that were involved inside of the pedophilia case had a dark web child pornography ring. Using Watchtower equipment. This thing is really, really, I mean, this has gone beyond sickening. They're using stuff that they were supposed to use for broadcasting and editing stuff, and they used it for their own sick little twisted child pornography ring.
Yeah, so, I mean, tell us more about that. I mean, there's a lot going on that we're not really hearing everything about, Johnny. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, the police in the Netherlands, they found, and when they raided the elders who did the molesting home, they found a lot of property that belonged to the organization, and editing software and laptop, all of it that was supposed to be used for basically the halls inside of the Netherlands. They're supposed to be also used for their Bethel area in the Netherlands, but instead was used to make a dark web site that is, because the dark web is not just it's not like for newbies now, who people who just use Onion and things like that. It's like P2P type things where you can have just tons of the stuff. And they were using, they only were charged with having, a few victims, but from what the police are saying, there could be as many as 40 victims, and most of them could have come from different congregations.
All right, so let me just get this clear. So you're saying in the Netherlands,
and Emmet, some place called Emmet.
Okay, so let's just get this clear. So you're saying that Watchtower equipment that would be used at Kingdom Halls, maybe conventions, whether it be cameras, sound equipment, whatever we used in making
And editing software, yeah.
And editing software and they were making pornographic film, you say, or?
Yeah, pornographic videos and pornographic images that were used on the dark web. But instead of using regular onions, they're using P2P with VPNs in order to be more anonymous, harder to find. But when these children now there was some were still children. Well, they're still kids to me, they're teenagers. But when they came up finally and told the cops about it, they found, these kids when they were small, they found their actual videos and pictures that were on these, this equipment, and it was also posted on the website.
Oh no! Were they young enough? Could they call that kiddie porn or what?
Yes. It was very. Some of it was disgustingly young from the letters that we got. Even there was a few that and this is, I'm sorry to say this, and please forgive me if this disturbs anybody, but it makes me want to just throw up thinking about it. But there was a few that involved babies. So,
does the Watchtower, do you feel the Watchtower organization, that the head organization was aware of this, or you think it was just some renegade elders there in the Netherlands?
I believe it was somebody, a little bit of both. It was somebody who had enough juice to get all that stuff out. You just can't, say, hey, let me use all this software and stuff like that, and let me bring a mixing board out and for sound, and let me bring this and that out. You have to have some type of clout, and these elders, must have had some clout over there in order to pull this stuff out, and they did. And, it's the more the police investigate, the more stuff they're finding. The P2P site already has, as the same thing that happens with, with websites, people that use what are those things called, on onion sites, those, they try to get drugs over the internet and stuff like that. And when the United States, when the police find it, it says in big bold letters, the FBI has shut down this website. And for them, from what the letters say, it says instead of that, Interpol has shut down this website.
I'm just going to stop right here, folks. I'm going to tell you, people are wondering, why are we playing Johnny the Bethelite? Well, if you've been listening to this, Johnny the Bethelite was talking about kiddie porn in the Watchtower, and we're going back 2 years ago in the Netherlands. And friends, I have to say this, the Watchtower is now feeling the pain. This is all coming back and biting them in the rear end, so to speak. They are covering their database up. They don't want anyone to see that database. And I know really that there are high officials in that database that have been involved in child molestation, or at least covering the sex abuse up in the Watchtower. Go ahead, you're on with us, Toronto, Canada.
Oh, hey there, Rick.
Yes.
How's it going?
Good.
Good. If there was a final nail in the coffin, in terms of any remaining faith, I think this did it. To be honest, it's disgusting. We're supposed to protect our children, and they're no safer in a Kingdom Hall than being down an alley in downtown somewhere.
Well, when you were in the Kingdom Hall and you sat next to some of these people, did it ever enter your mind that there were pedophiles in the hall?
Probably no. I growing up, it was like any stories that come from the outside, any stories, they're all false, right? And I believe that. I believe that nobody ever did anything wrong here, and it's like it wasn't until I started waking up and thinking critically, which probably was at the age of 15, that these issues, these issues were happening. And it happened to a friend of mine, and it's a really sad case. She was molested at the age of 7, and she's just a few years younger than me now, and she just recently got married. She cannot be touched or hugged or anything. And, even someone motioning towards her to give her a hug sends her into a panic attack. And I'm thinking, like, what kind of monster, what kind of adult would prey on a child and get some sick thrill out of it? Like, even in jail, some of the most ruthless, violent criminals that you have in there have a code against stuff like this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, anyways, it was good talking to you, Rick. I'm going to listen to the rest of your program now, and I'll let someone else say something.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, under the radar here.
Yes.
When I was gone for 30 years, and then I came back, and I married my husband, and I had a sister come over my house one day, and I gave her a wine cooler, and apparently she had never drank before, and she started to cry and tell me that her father had molested her. And I was really angry that my husband had never told me that. It's like all hush hush. And then years ago, when I had gotten married, I was 18 and got married, there was a sister, a young sister, who had moved in with me and my husband, and her stepfather had molested her. And then later on, after I had come back after 30 years, I found out that there was a brother in my original congregation years ago in the Tiverton Fall River area, a brother Warren, who had also been a pedophile. So the 3 congregations that I had been in, in my Jehovah's Witness life, there was a pedophile in each one.
Well, nationally, the average from what we have here, I mean, it's unofficial, but what we have put together here with the help of Bill Bowen with Silent Lambs concerning child sex abuse, the average is 2 pedophiles in every congregation.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
I sincerely believe that.
Disgusting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had no idea. We had
I
no.
want to say that these crimes are not new.
No, they're not, Pixie. But when we sat in
And most of the people that just called in are probably a great deal younger than you or I, but this goes back to the 50s. And in fact, I think some of it might even go back to Russell's day.
Oh, they do. Now, the reason why, well, let's just say the 50s. In the 60s, I at least know that. I have evidence of that. A man that I knew, he was the presiding overseer before they had the elder arrangement. He was a good friend of mine. He was an older man. He could have been my father, really. But he got other witnesses. And I asked him a few years back, he came on the program, and I asked him if, they had problems with child sex abuse back in the 50s and 60s. He says, oh, yeah. He says, they have always. And, they just kind of covered it up, Pixie. Yep.
And I know of a case where there was a very important Bethel traveling overseer, you might say. I don't remember what they called him way back when. But in the 50s, he was abusing young boys up and down the East Coast.
Yeah, it's just I'm having a hard time. In fact, even when I first started the 6 screens, I knew Bill Bowen. Bill Bowen with the Silent Lambs, of course. He was the first to really make light of all of this stuff that was going on for child molestation, sexual abuse in the Watchtower. But, you know,
sure, I'm familiar with his work.
Yeah, when I first came on 16 years ago, I thought that, you know, I didn't think there was that much with it. I didn't really pay too much attention to it. But as the years went on, this is a major problem the Watchtower has. And they're not dealing with it. They're not dealing with it the way that a normal, civil, God organization would deal with it. They're hiding it.
Even the Roman Church had an apology, which was a shock to me, but I won't go there.
Yeah.
But
you know what
we've not had an international apology. And the thing that I wanted to stress is not only is this a sexual crime, and I want to use the word crime, it's also a crime of violence and disrespect against women and boys and girls. It's seeing women and boys and girls as lesser, and it's using violence against them.
You know what else too? There's the fact that when I go and look up all these people, there's nothing in, you know, the child pornography, whatever site, because Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't want to like ruin Jehovah's name, so they keep it all hush hush. None of these are in that. I can't even remember the site. It was kind of a sexual pornography pedophile site where you can't be within, you know, 100 feet or whatever from a school or whatever. But none of them are on that site, that, you know, United States site. I can't even remember the name of it now, but I did look them all up. So they all keep it hush hush because they don't want to ruin Jehovah's name, which is like pathetic.
You're right. You're right. Under the radar. It's you know the problem that's going on here. And you mentioned Pixie. You mentioned the Catholic Church. I believe was under the radar. At least they recognize there's a problem, and they come forward and they say, yes, we do have issues with sexual child abuse in the Catholic religion. The witnesses never really admitted it. Look at the Australia Royal Commission. Geez, they had a governing body member up there, and he said that it wasn't his department. You know, others take care of that. Well, he should have known. Yes, there's a lot of sexual perversion, but I'm going to tell you something. It can happen, I'm sure. You know, the witnesses, their comeback would be, if you went to a Jehovah's Witness and said, did you hear about all of the sex abuse in the Watchtower? They'd say, well, that happens in all religions. That's their cop-out. That's their standard response. But, you know, it's one thing that it happens, and it will happen. Whenever there's groups of people, it's going to happen. That's a fact. But when an organization who claims to be Christian, God's chosen organization, the only true organization dispensing spiritual matters on the planet, is covering this up. That's the difference. That's the difference. If they would come out and say, look, yes, we do have a problem with it. We are working on it. We're trying to solve it. Man, it would make all the difference in the world, but it's too late. It's way too late. You see what happens? Well, you know, when a person lies, if you've known a liar, they have to keep telling more lies to cover their butt. So until they can stop and say enough is enough, they're going to keep lying. They're going to keep covering things up. No, we don't have a problem. Don't worry about it. But I'll tell you what, when I see these changes in the flock book, well, when I see them saying that, you know, we're not going to call a judicial committee hearing for a witness viewing child pornography, the only thing I can think of, the only thing that comes to mind is no, they're not going to do it because they don't want anything on record. They have a bad record as it is. I tell you, I don't know who's running this organization anymore, but boy, I'll tell you, they are running themselves into the ground. I don't.
Hey, Rick?
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like they're under new management. Like you say, when we were in there, you know, it was like you didn't hear of these things. You'd see things, but you'd just be in denial. And I remember when I was starting to come out, we used to laugh at certain brothers, you know, that were sex addicted. I mean, they'd go over to the sisters, they'd go, look at Frank over there. And go watch him tiptoe and look down the girl's tops. And he was the presiding overseer. And he'd tiptoe over there and kind of look down. And we just laughed like hell. And then after a while, but what happened was I started seeing it everywhere. And then finally, I was confronted with an elder that thought my wife was cute. And he said some things to me that probably nobody would believe on the air. But he told me that he would want to have sex with her. And I reported him to the elders. I went to the elders in East Texas, Nacogdoches, and I said, brother so-and-so said this about my wife, blah, blah, blah. I also had the Pioneer Sisters come up to me and say, well, if he touches our butt, he goes by and he touches our butt. And we've reported him. And I said, what'd they say? And they said, well, let us know what happens when you go in there and report him. So I went in there and reported him, and they said, Jehovah put him in, and Jehovah will remove him in Jehovah's own time. And I was like, holy shit. You know, I was like, whoa. Like, how much of this stuff is going on? And Rick, it was even worse than that. See brothers at the assemblies doing things that you wouldn't believe. And we would yell at them, say, hey, brother, get the hell out of the pool with all the sisters. Go over here. And, you know, I mean, it was like out of control. But what's happening, Rick, is they're being exposed. This is coming into the light. And what's happening, too, I think, is just as the world is getting darker, I mean, they're getting darker, which shows they're part of this world. They're getting darker. I mean, the reason, like you just said, Rick, you made a good point. The reason they put this in the flock book is no more records, brothers. Turn the pedophiles away. Don't report them. Tell them to go back home and deal with it. We're not going to write down anything anymore. Child pornography, we don't care. Send them back home, let them deal with it. But that's not because of anything other than we don't want, like you said, a record. They don't want a record anymore because a record will get them condemned. So it sounds to me like maybe they might be thinking about opening up. So they have all these things in place and new training. And like one sister said on here, the rest of the congregation don't know about this. You know, but somebody's thinking, somebody in the legal department is sitting back going, we got to cover our ass here. You know, put that in the flock book. We don't record anymore what's going on with these brothers in their private life. And anyway, it's just getting darker, but they're being brought to light. And I hope the good people are coming out. I hope the good people are saying, God, you can't go in a kingdom hall. Enter at your own risk. That's what's going on. And I want to say one last thing, Rick. If you could give me a copy of that book that you're talking about, the flock, a picture, and that paragraph, I'm going to post it everywhere online. You know, would you send your kids to Bethel with this? Would you do this? I'm going to post it everywhere. I know people are talking about it, but I'm going to post the hell out of it because I think we should give fair warning. Like that brother said, I'm going to show this to the brothers. Look what they're saying here, guys. You know, what, Angela? Oh, and Angela says it says to expose them. I'm going to expose them. I'm going to get a copy of that book. I'm going to look at that chapter, and I'm going to post it everywhere. We need to warn people. This is what's beautiful. Hearing this, we can tell people, look, it's right there in black and white. People, wake up, and give them an opportunity so they don't have to go through the suffering that a lot of us have went through in there, and you know, and wake up harshly and say, oh my God. Anyway, that's it. Thank you, Rick.
Well, thank you, Dan. Now, listen, if anyone wants a copy, now I've got different copies here. We've got the new one, the old one. I got a few copies. So if you want a copy of the new flock book, you can write me at jwworldnews@gmail.com. Now, if you don't get it, sometimes they shut me down. They don't let me do it. But right now, I'll do my best. You write me at jwworldnews@gmail.com. And in the next day or so, if I'm not stopped from doing it, I'll do it. I'll send you a copy. I'm sending a copy to the Irwin law firm, Zalkin law firm, that is, Irwin Zalkin law firm in California, San Diego. And I want him to see it because I think this could be very helpful for him in coming against the Watchtower with suits, and let the court know that, they tolerate child pornography, which is illegal. I think Zalkin should know about this. So write me. And if you don't get it, don't get mad at me, because I've done it before, but some reason, somehow they shut it down sometimes. So I'll do my best to get it to you. So write me. Very fascinating. I just can't believe how screwy, how nutty the Watchtower is as of late. Why would they even bother saying this? They know the apostates are going to see it. They know they're going to spread it all over the place. Why would they even bother doing this right now? It's just absolutely, yes.
Just like I have noticed, the more they try to corrupt and twist and change God's word, the Bible, the more that same Bible so clearly points to them as being what and who they really are. And I do believe it's possible that the same spirit that moves them to screw around with the Bible in such a way as to only show the light, to shine the light more clearly on their evil and wrongdoings. I think that's what they're doing. Like you said, why would they do that? Now it is in black and white for them what their attitude is. When the world, if they discover a teacher or a coach or anybody who has child pornography on their computer, it's on the news. They show him being hauled away in disgrace with his hands cuffed behind his back, being hauled away by officers. Everybody's like, we thought he was such a good man. Now the organization that claims to be the only representative of God on the earth says, oh, it's not that big a deal. Joe will take care of it. Really? Thank you, Rick.
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie. It's just amazing to me. And we can all sit here and we can talk and listen to each other's comments, but it boils down to one thing. Everyone here listening tonight and everyone here commenting, we're all in agreement with one thing. This is not right, what the Watchtower is doing, and they think they're getting away with it. Oh, they think, okay, we'll just divorce ourselves from child pornography and don't bring it up. I mean, any Christian church would deal with this and try to help people. The Watchtower, there's no comments here from the Watchtower in this elder's book on if a person comes to you and says they're having trouble with pornography, could you help us? There's no counsel for the elders to help them. There isn't anything here. A church, they have groups that meet. There are many people addicted to pornography. It's not a good thing. And so the churches try to help the people through it. The Watchtower is not helping people through it. They're trying to bury it. They don't want the world to know that, they have people who view kiddie porn. All right. You're on with us. Go ahead.
Hello, Rick. This is Constance.
Yes, Constance.
Hi, dear. How you doing?
Good,
everybody?
good.
Hi, Rick and Susan. I just wanted to say something very interesting. I think, Rick, this is a lot darker and deeper than the majority of us had ever even tried to conceive. For them not to even make an issue of it, holy mackerel, that's amazing. But the other thing I'd like to say is, with C.T. Russell, who apparently was the first Watchtower president, he and his wife, Maria Russell, had adopted a daughter. She was around 15, 16. She was a teenager. And her name was Rose Ball, like Lucille Ball, the same last name. And anyway, there was something going on with his sexual proclivities with regards to Rose Ball, because the wife, Maria, and you have to think back in that time, it was really unheard of for people to get divorced, number one, let alone a wife to divorce her husband. And anyway, she filed charges against him, and she said in the court documents that Charles Taze Russell was like a jellyfish. His hands were like a jellyfish all over Rose Ball. So, it's another reason why Watchtower doesn't want you to know their dirt, Rick, but, for people, if anyone's a witness saying, this is a bunch of apostate lies, I love the idea of Dad, blasting it out there on the internet, because people will say, don't believe those apostate lies. Yeah, well, when you find out, it's going to have the page, the chapter, the paragraph from the flock book. They can't deny it, Rick. And, Watchtower is so secretive, they don't want the rank and file to know. But boy, Rick, this organization is really, really dark and deep. I'm telling you, it's pretty disgusting. So thank you for the news on this. I mean, just when you think, Rick, just when you think it can't get any worse, it gets worse. It gets a lot worse.
Well, that's I like what you said right at the very onset. You said, this is deeper and darker than we think. And that's what I'm beginning to see here, Constance. This rabbit hole, I'll use Reese's phrase here, that this rabbit hole goes really, really deep. I can't believe it. Even when I read this week, I had to go over it. Is this for sure? And then I got information from Forget the Flock book and saw it. It's in there. I'm going, this is nutty stuff. Why would they do something like this? I don't know who's running the organization, but I don't think there's anybody sensible at the helm. And even that clip that we played from Johnny the Bethelite from 2 years ago, when he came on talking about kiddie porn and how the Watchtower was caught in it, I took it somewhat with a grain of salt. I believed him. But, many things he said years ago, people disbelieved him because it was so shocking. Money laundering, kiddie porn. They said, come on, this is crazy, Rick. But, this man, that was his last program. January 19th, 2019. 2019, that was his last program. Never came on again. I don't know what happened to him. But, I'm going to tell you something. If there's anything that the Watchtower really is going to do their best to cover up, it's officials, high officials in the Watchtower, and I'm gonna name one. I'm gonna do it right here. Jack Barr. He was a governing body member. Some are saying, now I'm not saying it because I don't have proof, but I have enough feelings for it because so many people have said things to me about him in the last 16 years. I believe this man was involved in child molestation, sexual molestation, and covering it up. Now, we've heard a lot about this in the last few years. Look at Bill Cosby. Look at Jeffrey Epstein. Look at all of these movie producers and what have you that have been involved. It's all coming out. This is alive and well. A lot of these big politicians, big business leaders, somehow they get their kicks off by having sex with children. Now, is the Watchtower exempt from that? No. And I believe a lot of the officials, higher ups of the Watchtower, it's my feelings, it's only my opinion, because I don't know. But I'm really beginning to see that the reason why they are holding back and releasing that database of sexual predators in the organization is because some of those guys are involved with it. And if that ever hit the news, it could be devastating.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rick, what's interesting is Bill Gates, he's a gazillionaire, and his wife was raised Catholic, in the Catholic parochial schools and everything, and they had 3 children. And, she's divorcing him. It might be finalized now. But I honestly believe part of the reason for that is because he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein had that jet called the Lolita Express that took them over to the little pedophile paradise out there near St. Thomas in the Caribbean. And Bill Gates and Clinton and all these other people were out there, but Bill Gates was one of them. And I think the wife said, okay, now you've really crossed the line here, you know. Plus he had, meaning Bill Gates, he had this thing, you know, an agreement in his marriage that once a year he could go to some, you know, some beach. You know, Rick, he had money up the yin yang, and money was nothing to him. But he wanted to be able to have a sexual affair with, you know, with another woman outside of his marriage once a year. And, you know, she's willing to put up with that, but, you know, you give him an inch and he wants 10 miles. So I think it's quite serious, and I know that a lot of us are really shocked about finding out, like, oh my gosh, really? This is all going on? And, you know, I think Watchtower is definitely involved too. And, you know, because the point you have to ask yourself, why would Watchtower be so reluctant to turn over that database? What in the world are they hiding, right? Okay, well, once this gets like to Erwin Zalkin, you know, Rick, it's going to blow the socks off Watchtower. They're probably going to lose their 501(c), which means they're all tax exempt and everything else. Yeah, it's going to take them down at the knees, Rick, and that's why they will not turn this over. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. I think Zalkin, you know, and then showing them this, oh my gosh, this will be great information for Erwin Zalkin to know, Rick. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good comments, Constance. Thank you. Okay, you're on with us. Go ahead. We got a number of people. Go ahead. Go ahead. You're on with us. Speak up. Who wants to speak up? We got a number of people.
I'm stressed now and shit. I knew you don't feel like that today, my nigga. Real nigga shit.
Rick?
Yes, go ahead.
Rick, you said that about Jack Barr?
Yes.
What have you heard about Jack Barr?
Hold on one second, Zach. I'll tell you what I heard about him. I just got to get something straightened out here. We got some people speaking up on the phone here. Just give us a second. All right, hold on one second. Give us a second. Hold on one second. We got some problems going on here. You still there with us, Zach?
I'm here.
All right, yeah, we'll get right to you in a second. I just got, we had a lot of people coming on here tonight. We just had some spammers, but somehow my system got kind of shut down here. So just give me a second. Just trying to get back onto our telephone lines here. It's always something that happens here. But...
Rick, this is Debbie Moore. I'm in line to talk to.
All right, go ahead.
I haven't done background noise.
All right, good. So go ahead, Debbie. What do you have to say?
Was it somebody else talking?
Well, I'll go back to Zach in a second. What do you have to say?
Oh, okay. Well, all I was going to do was comment on that like pedophile paradise. They've also found bodies of young girls in the ocean around those islands. They found a lot of skeletons in there.
Well, I'm not really sure what you're making reference to there, Debbie. Could you explain a little bit deeper for us?
Well, I mean, it's not only all these big, fancy, rich people, you know, that are flying down there on these pedophile islands, like, who was it? Angie was talking about
Epstein and Jeffrey
Emily.
Epstein. Yeah, Epstein.
But anyway, you know, they're paying to have sex with these girls, but when these children and stuff, but when they're done with them, they don't have anything. But they don't have anything to do with them because they're bringing in new girls or kids all the time. So to get rid of them, they just kill them and throw them in the ocean.
Well, these are things we're hearing, Debbie. It's not a good thing, but it's sad. But I'm sure all this stuff is taking place. Well, thank you, Debbie, for checking in with us tonight. Appreciate it. Don't you be a stranger. Okay. All right, Zach, we're going to come back to you now. Is you still with us, Zach?
I'm still here. I think so.
All right.
Can you hear me?
So the question, you give me the question again.
Yeah. Well, Rick, you just kind of said, it sounded like you made accusations against Jack Barr.
I did, yeah.
And on that, I have to come in and ask, oh, what have you heard?
Well, did you ever hear of a woman named Pat Gaza?
No.
Well, Pat Gaza had a lot to say concerning Barr's sexual conduct. A lot to say.
What did she say?
Well, basically that he was involved in perversion. And
where?
Well, she was on the program. She was on the program.
Perverse. Do you know Jack Barr?
I don't know him, but do you know him?
Yes, I did meet him.
Do you think that do you think
his wife?
Do you?
And I did notice that the years that Johnny came on, Johnny never had anything negative to say about Jack Barr. You did notice that.
No, Johnny never talked about Jack Barr, but Jack Barr did. But Jack Barr, from what I have observed and what I have witnessed here on the 6 screens, is a notorious character.
Jack Barr?
Yeah. Yeah. Now.
No, I've been coming on 6 screens since around 2010. I've never heard him described as a notorious character.
Well, we've had prior to that. You know, we've been going here now for 16 years. But we had a woman come on. Her name was Pat Gaza. Now, look, when people come on, they can say a lot of things. So, I mean, I can't, take it to the bank and cash it. But Pat Gaza did not have good things to say about Jack Barr. And, you can look up on YouTube, Pat Gaza and Jack and Jack Barr, Brother Barr.
I'm just expecting you to have something pretty strong if you accuse him like that. Right after you mention Jack Barr, then you throw Jeffrey Epstein in there.
Right.
That's not proof to me.
Well, no, look at here's the deal. Here's the deal.
Listen, Rick, I knew the two of them, and they were the nicest, as a couple, they were the nicest, sweetest people you could ever meet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could say that about a bunch of people in the Watchtower that have turned out to be not the sweetest people.
I'm saying this about Jack Barr. I'm not saying it's a blanket statement about the whole Watchtower.
Zachary, there's a lot of people that you would never suspect.
Debbie, why more? Debbie, I'm sorry, Debbie.
Bad like that.
I'm talking about Jack Barr. There's lots
I don't care if you're talking. Look at what the president's guilty of.
Clinton,
all of them.
Debbie, I'm not talking about Clinton. I've never met the man. I've seen
him.
You're
talking about Jack Barr. He's not God.
I didn't say he was God. I'm just simply saying he's Jack Barr. And I'm asking, what are these horrible things? I thought Rick said there are people over the years who've talked about Jack Barr.
A lot of people thought that Mr. Barr was a very good manager and very easy to talk to. And of all the people in the publishing office, he was noted as being the best manager. But
I'm sure he was a good manager, but I think Jack Barr was a good person. And so I'm wondering about this.
Good people do bad things.
He's a dead man now. He's dead. And so I'm wondering about this kind of accusation about him and the need to prove
Have you seen these
by
new
mentioning Epstein and all these other people. Okay, so I'm going to mute myself. I think you got my idea. All right, thanks for letting me speak up.
Okay, in fact, Zach, I just have to, I might have to come back next week and have some information on that. I may have some things mixed up here. I'm going to admit that.
You never know. You never know about people.
Hey, Rick,
You never know. Just a minute. Let me finish. Please. I know you want to say something that you know it's good. But a person can say something about anybody make a false accusation about anybody, and other people will tend to say, oh yeah, look at this person, look at that person. No, I'm only talking about the person who's been accused. I'm only talking about Jack Barr. Understand that.
Well,
okay?
let me make it.
I would defend you.
Let me make it.
I would defend you if false accusations were made against you. I would defend you.
Okay, listen. In fact, I'm gonna make a retraction. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna make a retraction here. All right, I'm gonna make a retraction. I'm not to erase what I said. Erase what I said because it may not be true. It may not be true, but let me bring you up to speed next week. I may have some names mixed up here, so let's not put Jack Barr under the radar screen at this point. I will make a clarification next week. It might have been Ted Jarrett's, but I might have the two confused, okay? I might have the two confused, so I take back what I said about Jack Barr until further notice, okay? Okay.
Hey, Rick, I was going to mention that this is Justin again. I served at Bethel from 1993 to 1998, and I used to cut Jack Barr's hair. So I think you might be going with Ted Jarrett. Ted Jarrett might be the one that you might be mentioning. As the other caller mentioned, Jack Barr was a very nice guy. I had an opportunity to cut his hair there, as well as Dan Sidlig, all the other guys at the GB as well. So it might be Ted Jarrett. Now, Ted Jarrett didn't come into the barbershop because his wife would cut his hair, but he was a very stern guy as well. So it could be Ted Jarrett is what you.
Well, I do stand. I do stand corrected. I believe that's who I was thinking of. So I'm sorry. I take back what I said about Jack Barr. It was Ted Jarrett's. Now that I'm reviewing some things here on YouTube, I'm sorry. I retract that. Yeah.
Hopefully, you know that Zachary speaks up. No, I'm doing the Trump thing. Zachary speaking myself third person, but I speak up. And when I speak up, I'm not making anything up. I'm being totally honest. Well, and I'm being adamant about it, too. That brother who was just on, you cut here in the barbershop?
I was at Bethel from 93 to 98, and I worked in the barbershop in a 25 building. So I used to cut Brother Berry, Brother Henschel, Brother Sidley, Brother Swingle, a lot of the older governing body that's pretty much paying Brother Schroeder, Albert Schroeder at the time. And so I cut all those guys' hair. Yeah. Whatnot. Ted Jarrett was the only one I did.
You're telling the truth. That's the building they would be in to get their haircut, the governing body members. Yeah.
No, I'm telling the truth. I was there. I served there from 93 to 98. Ted Jarrett was the only one who didn't come into the barbershop because his wife would cut his hair, and she worked in the beauty shop there, so she could cut his hair. Plus, he was pretty much bald anyway, as most of them were.
He was. I was there mid to late 80s, and I got my hair cut in the building 2 barbershop. Rick Hudson, for example. Bye-bye.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, and I used to, with Brother Los, believe it or not, I used to cut his hair when he first came there and whatnot, and he was a good ping pong player. Believe it or not, he would come to me out of the barbershop ping pong because I was pretty good at it as well. That was an odd thing, but he loved to play ping pong. He's pretty good, but not. But anyway, but yeah, I think it is Ted Jarrett is the guy, and it was always rumored even at Bethel that he had been disfellowshipped before. That was always a rumor behind Ted Jarrett. So.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Zachary, can you hear me?
This is Justin.
I can hear you.
Well, I was talking about Zachary a minute ago.
I hear you.
When I was saying even good people do bad things, and I wasn't specifically referring to Brother because I don't know anything about him. I was picturing in my mind a lot of the elders I knew that nobody would believe would do the things that they did. And at one point, I couldn't even believe what my own parents, my mother was a staunch Jehovah's Witness, My dad was our presiding overseer, but was working with the underground group of Jehovah's Witnesses that were back in the 1990s, that were gathering up the pedophile names to turn into the authorities.
Debbie?
Because, yeah.
Here's my point. This is my point. What I heard Jack Barr falsely, what I felt was falsely accused of something extremely serious, right? That's what I heard. And I came on to defend an innocent man who's probably not even alive anymore. No one can defend him. So if you know the man, you try to defend it. And when that happens, it would be appreciated if people didn't come in and try to prove that that is okay, that the false accusation is okay because of all the other horrible things that all the other people do. So when somebody's trying to defend an innocent man, I really would appreciate it if I would be allowed to defend him without people trying to prove to me that he probably did the thing he's falsely accused of.
Well, I apologize. I didn't mean to be. I guess I did do that, but I was meaning that because simply, like I said, I was thinking of the ones I was associated with, like an elder that never mind. I was a child sex abuse.
We hear the negative one ad infinitum. There's plenty of that. It's a little painful to see an innocent person falsely accused. That's the point.
Well, Zach, in fact, I have to tell you, but I have retracted it. I did get the names mixed. I got the names mixed up. I apologize. I'm not gonna. In fact, but Ted Jarrett's is the one. Justin corrected it as well, so I do apologize. I mean, we have a lot of things to unpack here at the 6 screens, and once in a while things do get mixed up. So I do thank you for stepping in Brother Barr's defense. I believe that should always happen here at the 6 screens. If something is said that's erroneous, not true, well, we can discuss it here. It's a live program, so that's what we do. We have conversations. Yep.
Yeah, Rick, I think it would have been a pleasure and a joy for you to meet Brother Barr and his wife. It's a shame that you didn't get to meet them when they called you up to Bethel.
Well, in fact, I do agree. Yes, thank you, Zach. All right, you're on with us. Go ahead, Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, you're on with us. All right. Well, let's move on here. Boy, I'll tell you what.
Rick, I got one for you that'll lighten it up a bit.
Sure.
I was looking at the Jesus book at the Thursday study about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And the baby Jesus in the book is on a blanket that looks like the Grinch.
Yeah? So the witnesses don't like Christmas?
Well, we kind of sort of know that, but I went back to see how they had depicted the infant in his first appearings, and he's on a blanket that looks like the Grinch.
Well, I mean, Pixie, you think other people noticed it, or you think you just did?
Well, I looked 3 times at it because I wanted to report it to you tonight, and I didn't want to say, well, it's just my thought. So I just looked at it a couple times, and it's absolutely one of those little subliminals that they like to put in the art.
Oh, they love those subliminals. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. My goodness gracious, Pixie. Yes, go ahead, Chicago.
Yeah, anybody obviously from elders on up, whether they know or unknow, they protect pedophiles. Once you get to a certain point in management, any corporation, you know what's going on, whether you're directly part of it or indirectly, but it's no secret. So we clearly know, just like the organization was part of the United Nations, they support the system of things. They support the United Nations. They do the bidding. They do what's required behind the scenes. So supporting pedophilia, if you look at what's going on with the transvestite story time and dozens of other things, extremely pornographic material in schools that are being read to the students in their books. So what they're doing is just paralleling what's going on in the so-called world. They're doing the bidding of it. And it's no accident. Whoever their handlers are directing them right where they want them to be. It's no secret. It's no mistake. It's no confusion. It's done intentionally.
Yeah, so you think the Watchtower has their finger on the ball, so to speak? They know what they're doing, right? They don't do anything on the wing.
No, they don't, because you just look at their history. Was
Yeah.
it an accident? That they can monitor whether you go to the YMCA to go swimming or for some other, minor reason. They can monitor if you're on a meeting a sister for lunch with no chaperone. That they can figure out, and that they can throw in everybody's face just to control them, and yet they wind up members of the United Nations. So to say that, pedophilia that's being engaged in the congregation is not something to be considered as very important or significant, they're giving the pedophiles a green light to go ahead. And everybody knows that it's not just the pornography or the child porn. It's the actual molesting of children. Because why is it they can have 20,000 names of pedophiles and nobody's breaking the doors in at Bethel and carrying out computers and files? Where's the FBI? Somebody owes the IRS $25. They're going to get it. They're going to be at your door. And who do you know that can have 25,000 names of pedophiles and nobody does anything after all these years? They're part of the system.
You know what? And some of the ones that they do have files on, that are the elders, like my dad, they disappear once they find out that you're exposing them. My dad and his best friend were both elders doing like the underground work, exposing the pedophiles. And my dad died one weekend, and his best friend died the next weekend. They were both presiding overseers. They had the perfect coverage, but yet they both died doing the same thing under suspicious circumstances. I believe just about anything anymore that is said about anything that goes on within the Watchtower Society. And a minute ago when I was saying that my mom was a staunch Jehovah's Witness, my dad was a presiding overseer, there was a brother in our congregation. I had no idea about his past. Everybody else did, and nobody said anything to me. This man had just got out of prison. He was raised as a witness, but he was also abused too. I mean, I know a lot of pedophiles were sexually abused as children, but nobody told me he was in prison for child molestation. And I was a single sister with a little boy and a little girl. And this brother was going out in service every week, putting on a really, he was reinstated and everything. And he started showing interest in me. And then he started offering, on Saturday, since my ex-husband never had anything to do with our children, he would tell me, hey, I'm going to take your son and teach him how to play golf. Okay. So I'd let him take him after service. And then next week, I'm going to take him, show him how to play to bowl. And, every week it was a different sport after service on Saturday. And when my son had to have brain surgery, there were several brothers bringing really expensive gifts to the hospital for him. And I'm thinking, that's when I started getting suspicious, because I'm thinking, why are these brothers bringing him $200 and $300 gifts. When he got older, he said they were to keep me quiet, Mama. I said, what are you talking about? He said they were all child molesters. And these were not just the guy that was been in prison, although that's what he was doing. But what got me is my mom and dad both knew that he was a child molester, and nobody told me. Nobody. Until after about a year. And then I said, oh my gosh, I heard a rumor. I was telling my mom, I heard a rumor, and this was a year later, that I heard a rumor that brother was a child molester. And I said, how could anybody accuse him of such a terrible thing? She says, oh, you didn't know? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you seriously think I would have been letting my son, your grandson, that you are insanely in love? Do you really think I would have been handing him over to a freaking child molester every damn Saturday? That is the one major thing I've had to deal with, even though my mom and dad are dead. My dad died in 2000. My mom died in 2006. I'm the same age now that my dad was. He was young. And I call 60 years old young. And the thing is, my parents were good people. They really were. And like I said, my dad paid for it with his life, exposing these people, and yet they turned a total blind eye that I was handing their grandchild over every week to a pedophile. And I'm still mad about it. What?
What were the circumstances of his death? And what was he doing with the information that he gathered?
Oh, my dad? Working with the underground group? They were gathering up they had a list of like a total of 29,000 brothers that there were different elders all over the country letting confidential records be seen. And they were, like my dad was always in the auditing departments at the conventions in Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas. And we went to all these different conventions all summer long. But all along the way, he was collecting information on these pedophiles. And like I said, they had the names, they were gathering the addresses and everything to turn over to the authorities.
Okay, Debbie, we got to move on here. We got more stories. We got more stories to develop here tonight. We can't get bogged down in too much information here, but we got to move on. I'm sorry, hate to so do it, but time we got Reese coming up here at 9:30. We got to keep moving on. Debbie, I know you've had serious issues with the Watchtower, and we certainly can appreciate all of that. My goodness, and we've had you on. Some night we might get you on the conference call and tell you your whole story. But you're on with us. Go ahead. We got more people calling in right now. So go ahead, speak up if you like. You're on with us. You're on 6 screens. All right. Well, we're going to move. We got more stories to talk about here tonight. If anyone wants to speak up now, fine, before we move to the next story. But we got to keep it short. When you guys get talking, it kind of derails the whole news here. So we got to move on. Kingdom Halls. When's the last time you punched in Kingdom Halls in Yelp or on Google? Punch Kingdom Halls in. You'd be surprised what comes up. Many of them are coming up saying temporarily or permanently closed. Well, what do you think about that? Permanently closed. What does that mean? Well, just Google in your former Kingdom Hall or Kingdom Halls that you know about, and you'll see different messages come up. Now, I Googled in, I live here in Massachusetts. I Googled in Kingdom Halls, local Kingdom Halls. And what I find is what came up is services offered, virtual classes. So, no meetings publicly, but they are saying that there's virtual classes. I guess that would be considered on Zoom. And then also in some of the Kingdom Halls, they said that there's no hours available, but many punching in Kingdom Halls on the internet are finding permanently closed or temporarily closed. So that's interesting. But I mean, I'm not going to read more into it than there is. I mean, I'm not sure who would put that up. I don't know. If you get on Yelp, the witnesses don't really maintain that site. But, finding messages like permanently closed, that can be somewhat interesting, right? Are they really permanently closing some of the Kingdom Halls? Well, we know that they are. So it's amazing that that gets into Google and gets mixed up in the world of cyberspace. So, if you want to attend the Kingdom Hall, forget about it. It's not going to happen. You're going to get on a Zoom meeting. Well, I wanted to bring that to your attention tonight. I thought that was fascinating because we know they're closing so many Kingdom Halls down. They're selling them off. And when I see things on Google saying permanently closed, that gets my thoughts up. In 1956, I don't know if you guys can remember or not, maybe many of you weren't around in 1956, but in 1956, the Watchtower, it said the cleanup of bones from Armageddon would take 7 months. Can you believe that? 7 months the cleanup of bones would take. And they were saying that, there'd be bodies all over the place. And Jehovah would use the witnesses who were surviving Armageddon to go and bury these bodies. And they would scout them out and bury them. So really, I mean, I'm not sure why they're saying bones, clean up the bones. There'd be dead bodies, but, they're kind of soft pedaling it here. Bones would be more like putrid smelling rotten corpses that the witnesses would have to bury. Now, what?
I remember hearing all that, Rick.
You do? Yeah, no, that's crazy stuff, Jeff. Now, this is madness.
Yes, it is.
This is madness from a barbaric religion, butchery, bloodthirsty, as to relish the massacre and burial of billions of those that did not follow 8 men living in upstate New York. Come on. This is absolute terrible. This is one of the myriads and myriads of reasons why Jehovah's Witnesses have no natural affection. How can you have natural affection when you're talking about burying bodies all over the place? Really, that is certainly something to get your attention.
Yeah. That's all they wanted to do is, talk about death and destruction. Their books were full of it. They were full of it. It was just terrible. Armageddon. I mean, it went on and on. It was just terrible.
Yeah, well, I found it quite fascinating. Even that article in the Watchtower, it says you'll be burying all these bodies, bones they spoke about after Armageddon, and they considered it a privilege. A privilege. Can you imagine, after Armageddon, and you survived if you were a Jehovah's Witness, and now you're going around, it's going to take 7 months to clean all these bodies up and bury them? The birds, well, we were taught by the Watchtower, the birds were going to help clean up this mess. They were going to eat the dead bodies, pick the eyeballs out. I mean, it sounds gross, I know. But, it's just disgusting to me. But I can remember back when I was a witness and in the ministry, the car groups, I can remember them saying when they saw a bunch of crows or buzzards, they would always comment that, oh, look at this, Jehovah is increasing the birds, the crows, the buzzards, because they're going to be helping in the new system to clean up the dead bodies. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine a so-called religious community of Christians, as the Watchtower says they are? Yes. Unbelievable.
They probably brought that out with the bones. There's a scripture, I think it's like Ezekiel, where it talks about walking through the land and putting a marker by the bone.
Right.
Until the grave is digging to bury it. So that's where they
got it. Right. I did see that. That's exactly where they got it, from Ezekiel. But isn't that morbid? Isn't that morbid to teach people that they will be burying billions of people on this planet? I mean, these are psychopaths.
In 1975, that's how they scared so many people into getting baptized. You know, they predicted Armageddon was coming in that fall. And I was one of the kids that got baptized because I really believed it. And they told us literally that if we were 12 years old or older and we weren't baptized, to not think we would get for Armageddon on the coattails of our parents. And it said, you'll be among the millions or billions of bodies where your like you just said, your eyes would be picked out by the birds. There would be like maggots, you know, all over your body. And I mean, and it was very graphic what they would say from the platform. And I told you before that in my congregation, there was 79 of us that got baptized. All the people that were Bible studies, and there were brothers in our congregation that were ruined because they would buy big, expensive houses thinking they would not have to pay for them. Many quit their jobs to pioneer, and then, you know, and Jimmy Carter, I think, was the president in 1976. By the world was actually declared the year of peace and security. And of course, the scripture in the Bible that the witnesses used was that, you know, when they say that when the nation says true peace and security, that's when the end was going to come. But on January 1st, 1976, a lot of witnesses were expecting like overnight Armageddon to just come, and we would just go outside and there'd be billions of bodies everywhere. Or at least that's how us kids imagined it would be. But I know that by the time tax season was April 15th, so many witnesses were completely bankrupt. They couldn't pay back taxes or anything. And it was really sad. And to think, I watched that movie Apostasy the other night. It's on Prime Video. I think it was on Prime. But it was, you know, the one called Apostasy that they put out about the Jehovah's Witnesses. And it was really, really sad because that's
okay. We're getting off subject here, Debbie. We'll try to stay on the subject because I'm trying to, you know, do the news here without getting too derailed. So stay on the subject, but I appreciate your comments. I really do. But let's try to stay on the subject, and then we can keep continuity going here on the 6 screens. But thank you, Debbie, for speaking up. So, I mean, it's very morbid, right? It's very, very morbid that we have Jehovah's Witnesses now. They're going to go out, those that survive Armageddon, and they're going to bury billions of people who have been brutally murdered by Jehovah, men, women, and children. I mean, does that sound like Paradise Earth to you? Does that really sound like Paradise Earth? So originally now, going back years ago, the witnesses who survived, it was going to take 7 months for them to clean up the earth to be able to get these bodies buried. But that's old light. That's old light. There is now new light on this because many people were thinking about that. Think about it. I used to think about it. When I was a witness, I used to think about, this is not, I mean, if we survive Armageddon, I got to bury all these bodies. Think of the psychological trauma. These people are psychopaths. Only a psychopath would find joy in burying the bodies of millions of murdered people, little babies, children. You think that's a pleasant sight? Armageddon hits. Now we're in the new system. Now I'm going to go out and bury these people? Come on. Don't you think of the emotional trauma that would be put on you? But now the Watchtower, they knew that people would be questioning this. They knew that people would say, that doesn't sound right. So now we have new light. Now we have new light. Now, as a matter of fact, in the nation shall know that I am Jehovah book, they have new light. Paragraph, chapter 20, paragraph 22 on page 377, for those interested. It says the fact that Jehovah leaves the bodies of those slain at the defeat of Gog's attack, that is after Armageddon, lying exposed on the ground for birds and wild beasts to gorge themselves upon, symbolizes that they will be laid in respected memorial tombs in hope of a resurrection of them. Well, that's crazy. But it says the unburied dead, those slain by Jehovah, will be so enormously many that even the carrion birds and the scavenging wild beasts could never care for their consumption. In other words, there's no way that even the birds and the people burying, there'd be so many dead people, what the Watchtower is now saying, that there'd be no way that we could get rid of all these dead barriers. So now we have these dead bodies. So now we have new light. Oh, what's going to happen now? The burial of even what remains after the creatures try to fill themselves with consumption is stupendous. In other words, the birds, the carrion, all of the animals eating the dead bodies, forget it. It's not going to happen. It can't happen. There's too many dead bodies. And so now Jehovah God, Almighty God, according to the latest light here, will use, this is in the Jehovah Notebook, the new light is Almighty God Jehovah, will use some highly scientific means, whether including antimatter or not, to dispose of the surplus of decaying bodies in a speedy and sanitary way. If you look up antimatter, I mean, it's really physical science at its best. I mean, I'm not even going to try to explain it to you because I don't even get it. But the Watchtower, the book, the publication, God Knows book, they're telling you that scientific means will be used to dispose of the bodies after Armageddon. Now, you know, they use the example here of Noah and the survivors of the global deluge, and they weren't burdened with burying the human victims after that catastrophe. Jehovah took it to himself to take care of it. So that's the newest teaching. That's the newest light. What do you think on that? How do you feel? Boy. So new light, they can just keep doing all this new light to try to appease the people. But at some point, seriously, at some point, you got to question the Watchtower's ways of doing business, right? You have to. All right. So if you're on with us, you want to speak up, go ahead. Did you think
I was just going to say, Rick, that my mother used to say, well, like you say after Armageddon, it's going to be like a holy mess if there is a fact in Armageddon, which is not. But anyway, I was like with the sanitation, it's like who's going to, how's it going to be sanitation? And they always come up with the stupid question. Well, there will be brothers who know how to do that. I mean, like we're in New York, okay? So my mother says, yeah, we're in the New York area. So there's one brother in New York who's going to take care of all the dead bodies and sanitation in New York. What about Ohio? What about Philadelphia? What about Australia? What about all over the whole world? I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, there will be brothers that know how to do that. I mean, really? That's so ridiculous.
Well,
that's
sure.
What I'm saying.
Well, Shirley, you're a smart lady and you have your head on straight. But, how is it that people can believe this crazy stuff? So, at one point they teach this, then they change it, but the madding crowd goes along with it all. It's just absolutely nuts. Thank you, Shirley. Someone else want to come on and speak about that? Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is a pastor bird, and my comment is, well, it's about damn time that Jehovah has decided to clean up the mess that he was going to leave for us. So I like this new light. It's much better than before.
Oh, the new light, Linda, the new light here is way better. I mean, I used to have trouble with that. I really did. As a witness, I would say, geez, making it through Armageddon, what fun is that going to be? Man, I'm going to have a hard time picking up putrid bodies laying all over the place. But now, through the magic of Jehovah and through the magic of antimatter, they're going to be able to, these bodies will be destroyed by gaseous matter of some type. Unbelievable. They'll be buried. Okay. So that's unbelievable.
The Paradise book, Paradise book that I was raised on, it said it was going to take 7 years.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what I grew up looking at.
Yeah, 7
all
years.
Skulls and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
No, that's...
So just like, so getting rid of a little bit of that narcissistic, I'm going to throw a fit and somebody else has to clean up from after me.
Yeah.
Story. So this is an improvement. Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Okay.
we're looking forward to Pasta Babe coming on later tonight at midnight. You'll be coming up midnight tonight, Pasta Babe. So looking forward to healing after the Watchtower. She'll be on with us tonight. So don't miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So.
Hey, Rick.
Yes, Dan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this watchtower, when you stand back outside, like where we're at, it sounds like an ongoing fiction horror movie. and to be a part of the organization still, after all the false flags, after all the new light, you got to be a junkie. You got to be a genocide junkie to think Jehovah's going to come any day, blood and guts. I mean, what kind of, when I saw my brother after all those years, you know what his one mantra was to me? You're going to die. Jehovah's going to kill you. I'm like, whoa. To be in there, to continue to listen, you'd have to be in denial, and you just have to be a junkie. How could you listen that they're going to destroy your kids who've left, your aunts and uncles, your wonderful neighbor who bakes you a pie every year, these wonderful little children all around? What kind of person would you have to be? I mean, we're in a time of awakening, education. We can research. You'd have to be pretty, I'm sorry, Rick, I'm going to say it like it is. You'd have to be pretty far on the bottom of the barrel. I'm sorry. There's too much information to be in there and to listen to this science fiction horror story. That's how I hear it now. New light. Okay, here's the next chapter. Here's chapter blah, blah, blah. It's going to be like this. Aliens are going to come in and swoop up all the bodies. Rick, you'd have to be nuts to be in there. I shouldn't say that.
No. It's fine. It's fine you're saying it because I'll agree with you. But you'd have to be sociopathic. Really. How much joy? They're saying it's a privilege, Dan. They're saying it would be a privilege to go out and bury these bodies. Is that a privilege?
Rick, it's genocide. I say that. I post this stuff. I said, guys, these guys are talking about genocide. I was at the hall. I know I've said this before on the show. not too long back, before they shut the halls down, when they had the bells on the doors and the buzzers. And Rick, I walked in, they had a watchtower, and they were holding it up, and it says, Jehovah has already executed judgment on all religions, on Babylon the Great. Has already, meaning, they have a death sentence. They're saying this. All Christian religions, all Buddhists, everything in the world already has a pronouncement of death on them. What kind of freaking men could say such a thing, could stand in the place of God and put a death sentence and say, we know absolutely for sure that Jehovah has executed judgment, but psychopaths. These are psychopaths. They're mediums. They're people that stand. They're making a mockery out of God. God is not a psychopath. God loves us. We're his children. Even if we're on the wrong road, God loves us. While the prodigal son was going away, God loved us. That's all of us. And then we get to return back home, hopefully. That's God, not this monster. It's just wild, Rick, to sit back outside and go, my God, I can't imagine what God would feel. I mean, he probably has the attitude, Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. But, man, this is bad.
Well, you hit the nail right on the head. It is bad. It's bad. It's destructive. It's unbelievable. Go ahead.
Can I just say something? This is Jehovah's mum who's calling in, and he's not Jehovah. He's just a very naughty boy, and when he makes a big mess on the world, he should clean it up himself and not ask the poor Jehovah's Witnesses to go off cleaning up the dead bodies. It's not fair. He's a naughty boy.
Well, sister, you're absolutely right. You're calling in from the UK, right?
No, I'm calling in from the universe. I said I'm Jehovah's mum, and he's just a naughty boy. He plays around with the world, makes all this mess, and he says, well, you get up and clear up all those putrid bodies. I keep telling him, clear your own room up. He's naughty.
Well, there you go. I agree with you, sister. Thank you for checking in with us tonight. Thank you. Always good to hear from you. I love the accent. Thank you. Well,
Rick, we might as well go full on science fiction. The lady just called in for the universe.
Yeah, there you go. So it's wonderful that we do have so many people calling into the 6 Grains. But anyways, our program has to come to an end. I hate it. I hate to end it. But we have Watchtower and the Occult Connection coming up next. But I just want to make a few comments here. We do have 6 Screen Sunday. That'll be tomorrow. Now, listen, what we do is we don't discuss theological issues on Saturday night, but we do on Sunday. What do former Jehovah's Witnesses do for spirituality when they leave the Watchtower? Why don't you check it out tomorrow on our 6 Screen Sunday program beginning at 1 o'clock? And we have 2 Christian apologists that come on, Scott and Jody, and their program tomorrow is entitled Scholarship is Not a Dirty Word. And what it's all about here tomorrow is going to be, the Watchtower doesn't want you to go to college, but they make scholarship or college a dirty word. Check us out tomorrow for Knowing God right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork, 1 p.m. I want to give a shout out to all of the apostates, everyone. I know Dan and Angela, they're on there. They're spreading the news about the Watchtower. I know John I say John Cedars, but we know it's Lloyd Evans. He's out there and he's doing the best he can, along with his cohort, John Redwood. And we want to thank them both. We want to thank J.W. Escape, Critical Thinker, all of these people that are exposing Mike and Kimmy, all these people exposing the Watchtower. Keep up the good work. It's working. It's working. We are getting points on the scoreboard. More and more people are leaving the Watchtower. They're finding out what's going on in that debased organization. Our friends, send no donations, please. People still want to send donations here. It's okay. I'm surviving. We don't need your donations. I don't want your donations. I'm not being oversensitive to this, but, I don't think that you should pay. I appreciate you wanting to donate to the 6 Screens, but I don't think you should pay for this. When I got out of the Watchtower, I had people that helped me so much. I didn't have to pay a penny. I didn't have to do a thing. They were willing to help me, and that's what we want to do here at the 6 Screens. We want to help you. But if you really want to help us, don't send the money. Why don't you share? Why don't you share our Facebook videos? Why don't you like us on YouTube? Why don't you subscribe to us on YouTube? And what that does, it gets us out. It reaches more and more people that can get themselves out of the Watchtower. So why don't you help us with that? But don't send any money. Don't send any money, please. Help us with sharing what we're doing here, and I think that'll be a good thing. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. I guess that's it. So now we're going to Watchtower in the Occult Connection. Oh, my goodness. We have Reese from the Belly of the Beast. He's coming up. He's going to be talking tonight about Russell, a lot of other things too, COVID and what have you. But he'll be talking about Russell and how Russell may have been involved with the Federal Reserve System. Can you believe that? I can. Well, let's see what Reese has to say. He'll be coming on. He'll be coming on the video suite. And now, listen, if you're on YouTube, we're going to disconnect YouTube at this point. But if you want to listen into the rest of the programs here tonight, we have a number of programs still going to come up tonight. Why don't you look at the bottom description box and how you can check in and listen on your telephone line or on our video suite. Or if you're on Facebook or any other network you're listening to us on, we have our platforms here are many. We have many networks we're broadcasting on. Why don't you go to 6screensofthewatchtower.com, scroll down to where it says Video Suite. Click that. You can put a name in. It can be a fictitious name. And listen in on the internet. And you can live chat as well. Why don't you try that out tonight? Get in there. Go to 6screensofthewatchtower.com. Scroll down to Video Suite. Hit the link, put a name in, and there you are. Even a child can do it. It's so easy. All right, we're now going to Reese, the Belly of the Beast in New York. Let me make sure we can get him up here. Let me scroll him down. I'm going to bring him up on our 6 Screens video suite. We're going to end our YouTube broadcast right now. Thank you for coming in YouTube and Facebook.